ribs. Ribbing? I'm not really sure. What I've got in front of me is a selection of my favourites, and I want to show you all of them. We've got some post stitch ones here, and we've got some other variations at the bottom here. And I would, before I start, look, I'm going to apologise. My nails are atrocious. They are a state, but oh my goodness, there was no way that I was going to redo them for a video tutorial. I'm sorry. I thought, do you know what? It's not a priority, and one could argue that it's a look. And one that I'm going to stick with. So if you could just sort of look beyond the messy digits and focus on these beautiful samples of crochet rib. I don't know if maybe you can already spot a little bit of a difference between these ones at the bottom and these ones at the top. The top ones are created with front and back post stitches, and we've got lots more slip stitches going on in my favourites. So I'm going to just pop aside my all-time besties just to the side for the min, and we can just talk a little bit about front post and back post stitches, if that's all right. These are all made in the same way. This is just kind of like 1x1 rib, if you like, 2x2 rib, and 3x3, by which I mean this is, you've got a front post, back post, front post, back post, then front, back, back, front, back, and then front, back, back, front, back. All of these samples were made with a 4mm hook and double knit yarn. I think, if I'm not mistaken, all of my little samples are 25 stitches across. I know that post stitch ribbing gets a bit of flack every now and again, but I think it has a place. I really do like it a lot. So that's what they all look like. On my blog, I will have photographs of the projects where I've actually used these stitches. I don't even know if I've ever used a 3x3, but it's certainly a 2x2 and a 1x1 I have used in projects. So how do you work the post stitches ribbing? Let's start with the post stitch rib. I'll demonstrate how to do this 1x1 version and the 2x2 one. After I've shown you both of those, I'm pretty sure that the 3x3 and if you wanted to do a 4x4, they would all be self-explanatory by the end of this little tutorial demonstration. So what I've done here is I've got 16 US double stitches, which is UK treble stitches. I will try just to refer to them as stitches so that we don't get confused. And when I say we, I mean me. It happens very easily. What I've done is 16 so that it works for both the 1x1 and the 2x2, I think, although I'm not a maths whiz, so we'll find out in a minute. This, by the way, is chainless foundation, where you don't work a chain, you just work the stitch into a teeny tiny beginning chain, and then each stitch is worked into the stitch before it. I have a separate video for that, which I will link. So if you've got your first row, the next thing you want to do is chain 2 and turn. And then we're going to work into the posts of these stitches rather than the tops. Normally we would walk. We're not going to walk in the stitches, we're going to work in the stitches. We would normally work into the tops, which are these like little V's. But what we're going to do is work into the actual posts of the stitch, hence the name front post and back post stitches. So it's named thusly because that's what it is. So I've chained 2, and in the first stitch I'm going to do a front post stitch. So we're going to yarn over and insert my hook around the first post, pull through some yarn, and then you're just working a standard stitch really. It's just you're working in a different place. The next one goes around the back of the next post. So you insert your hook like so. And this is the second stitch. So it looks a bit weird, I grant you, but once you get used to it, it's quite fun to do actually. You use these posts in the waffle stitch. So all you do is go front to the back, the front to the back, over and over, and that is all you do. This creates a really nice texture. I know this rib isn't for everyone, but I do think it has a place, and I enjoy working it, and I enjoy the look of it in certain projects. So I'm nearing the end. So I'm going to end on a back post stitch. So this is the last stitch here. So I'm just going to pop it through the back. Can be a little bit fiddly, that last one. So that's what it looks like on row 2. So you can see that the texture has been created by wrapping the yarn around those posts. Now all the ones that are humply bumply poking outwards are your front posts, and all the ones that are kind of recessed are your back posts that you've made. So chain 2 and turn. As we're working on this side, what we're going to do is start with a front post and then back post. So that is always going to be the case when you've got a multiple of 2 in your pattern. So if you start with the front post and go in, and then the back post around. And what I would like you to recognise, if I'm just going to do a couple more stitches, so this one's the front. And then I'm just going to work another back one before I bleat on about how to recognise what a front and where to put your stitches. You're always going to put your front post stitches into the ones that are already poking out towards you. So you would yarn over and you go, oh, this one's a relief. It's coming out at me. So that is a front post stitch. I'm going to put my hook in there towards the front and make another front post stitch. This next one, this one is recessed. It's at the back of the work. I'm going to put my hook around the back of it and work my back post stitch. That creates your lovely uniform rib. If you were to do the opposite way, it's not going to look as good. It's going to look a bit more higgledy-piggledy, and that clarity in the rib is not going to be there. Oops. And I am well aware that you are now getting a close-up of my tatty nails. So let's just get to the end. It's a 1 row pattern repeat, so you do the same every row until you reach the desired depth of rib. Oh, why can't I do that one? So front post and then finish it off with the back post. There is a bit of bulk on this one because we've got a 2 chain there as well. Just wrap your hook, wrap the yarn around the whole thing and ignore it. It might poke out a little bit, but we'll worry about that later. And also there are other ways you can start your stitches if you want to. I will come back another day for a video about how to start our crochet. Today's not that day, unfortunately. I do apologise. So it looks like that. What I would say is, if you're using this as a cuff or a waistband, something like that, you're going to want maybe five rows in total to get yourself a nice depth which looks visually pleasing and works as a rib. That would be the case for a double knit. Maybe you could get away with 4 rows for a heavier weight of yarn. And then if it was something like a sock or a 4-ply yarn, I might be tempted to work 6 or 7 rows of the front post to back post stitches. Again, it's kind of individual choice really. It's up to the designer about or the maker as to what they choose to do. I've just worked a row of standard stitches just so I can start showing you the 2x2 rib without interrupting what I did to show you the 1x1. So I'm going to chain 2, and as a 2x2 suggests, we're going to start with 2 front post stitches, and 2 back post stitches. And for this you would want a multiple of 4 stitches. So we've done 2 front, 2 back, so we go to 2 front again. And so forth. 2 back, 2 front, and then I'm not going to show you 3x3 because it's the same. Only do 3 to the front, 3 to the back. Oops, because I said 3, I started doing 3. Way to confuse myself even further. And why not experiment and see what 4x4 looks like, or 5x5? I mean, it depends entirely on the project, doesn't it, as to what looks good and what you want to do yourself. So finishing off with 2 back post stitches. Then chain 2. So ignoring that bit, that is what we've got so far for our 2x2. That's just the foundation row and the first row that we started doing our post stitches. So I've turned it, and now I'm going to do 2 front. As I said, it always starts the same way unless you've done some other jiggery pokery with your pattern. 2 front, 2 back, and you can again see that I work the back stitches into the ones that are kind of recessed to the back, like they're little alcoves of stitches, and then these ones pushing their way to the front are the ones where we work our front post stitches around the post of each stitch. I love it when the stitch pattern is called after what it is and what it does and what it looks like. It's fabulous. And again, if you ever get lost, go where I am in the pattern, it's a great one that you can just look at it and you go, oh yeah, I'm there. And that is how we do our post stitches. And in my blog, I have shown you examples of where I've used this stitch. So I've just had a rummage in my cupboard, and I found my bobble hat that is called January Hues. And this uses the 2x2 rib. And then just for a bit of a 1x1 rib, here's my Directly mittens, and I used the 1x1 rib on those. So you can see that actually, cat hair aside, there's cat hair in literally all of my videos, by the way. You can see that those post stitches actually do a great job for crochet ribbing, and I don't think they're hideous at all. I think a lot of people poo-poo them and are a bit mean about post stitches, but I think they have a place and I think they look really good. So that was how we worked our post stitch ribbing, as in the 1, 2 and the 3. But let's move on from these and check out something that's a bit arguably more sophisticated, I suppose. We have 3 different ribs here that I have used in projects, and I love them all, and they all have their place within crochet. It's just what you prefer, what you think looks good with the main stitch pattern you're using in your pattern, and I guess what fits in with that. If you wanted to go for easy, this is the easiest one. This is a half US double, or UK half treble stitch. I'll talk about these ones in a minute. Let's talk about this one. So this is all half stitches, but they are worked into the front third loop. Now, this is different from the back loop and creates a completely different look. And do you know what? Sometimes the mind boggles how crochet works, because what I did was also work up a swatch of the back loop only, so you can see the difference. This is back loop only for a half double US terms, half treble UK, and then it's a back loop and then the front loop. But you're just working the same stitch, it's just where you're placing it that's different, and it creates a different kind of look. This one I think has better stitch definition, this one on the right. It looks neater and it looks more like a rib, as opposed to this one here, our back loop only friend, which is okay. But I think if I can make one that looks more ribby, then I'm going to choose that one, aren't I? So this one also, it's a bit looser and drapier and doesn't have as much ping back, I don't think, as this one. But I just wanted to show you that it's different when it's the front loop. So let me show you the front loop so that you're not just sat there going, well, go on, get on with it. So what I've done is start with a row of, this is a foundation row of half UK treble stitches, US double stitches, okay, made in the same way as I made my treble row, using the same video on how to do a chainless foundation. So with this one, I want to chain 1. Now, let me show you the anatomy of a half stitch. So standard would be to work in the top V of a stitch. We would work into that ordinarily, wouldn't we? So instead of going in these V tops, we actually work in the front third loop, which is here, and it's unique to the half stitch. You don't see this front third loop in a single crochet or a US double crochet, you just don't. And we're going to work into these front third loops, and that's what creates our rib. So I've chained 1, yarn over and work a half stitch into that front loop. And it's a 1 row pattern repeat. And this stitch alone, it doesn't have to be used in ribbing. You can use it in other patterns too. So I've actually used this in a chunky scarf before, and it looks really good. So you just carry on working in that front third loop all the way to the end. And then you do the same when you turn and work back the other way. I'm working quite loosely here just to make the tutorial easy and to make it easy to see for you guys. So chain one and turn. And by working into that loop at the front, what you're doing in essence is pushing the two top stitches and forcing them outwards so that they become the rib. The end one can sometimes be difficult to find, but it is there. And then again, so it's repeat, repeat, repeat all the way along your rib, along your stitches. And then that's it. That's all there is to it. So that's the half treble front third loop only. Really easy. And a great one to do join as you go as well, which I'll show you another time. I'm planning on doing a video for join as you go ribs because a couple of people have asked me about it recently, so thought you guys might like it as well. So a trick if you are getting stuck is just to turn and look at it from the other way, so I can see uniformly where all those V's are. Know that that's the one on my end. And so the one in front of it is where I'm going to work. Ooh, cat sneeze. So you can see that rib starting to form. Okie dokie, I've worked a few more rows of the front third loop only so that we can see our little ribs coming through. I think that's probably enough to demonstrate how it looks. What I'm going to do is just work the next stitch pattern directly onto this one. I hope that's okay. But just to differentiate between the two, I'm going to place a stitch marker so we know when we can see that it's different. With this next one, which is this bad boy, we're going to work our first row, and that is going to be some half stitches, half US doubles, half UK trebles, back loop only. But we mix it up with a slip stitch coming back the other way, so it's not just half treble back loop only, it is a little mashup. So sorry, I realise I'm going too fast. So insert the hook into the back loop only, yarn over, and then pull through the stitches. Insert, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all three loops. Pull through all three loops. Yarn over, insert hook into the back loop only, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through all three loops. So we do that all the way to the end. Oops. And then chain one, turn, and this time we're just going to do an ordinary slip stitch into the back loop only. So it's yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. So insert hook into the back loop only, yarn over and pull through both loops. And this slip stitch, I think it gets a bad rap. And yeah, if I was to do back loop only slip stitches every row, it's true, I get a little bit fed up of them. However, if you work the stitches loosely, they are actually easy to work into, but you do have to be a little bit looser than you normally would be with your stitches. That's a top tip from me. Be loose. So that was a row of slip stitch back loop only, and we're going to go back to back loop only with our half stitch. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So this is a 2-row pattern repeat. And we're back on the first row of 2. Half US doubles, back loop only. And then the second row repeat is again slip stitches, back loop only. So I'm going to do just a few more rows of this, and then I'll come back and show you what that one looks like. Although you've seen it in the swatch, but let's show you on here too. Right, so I've done a few more rows of that one from here to here. I'm going to put a little stitch marker in because I'm about to change the pattern, but you can see the difference between the two. This front third loop only, the rib relief sections aren't quite so close together as when you would do the half stitch with the slip stitch back loop only. So what I'm going to do here is a combination of slip stitches with yarn over slip stitches. I'm still doing it all back loop only, but I'm effectively swapping out those half stitches here for a yarn over slip stitch. Okay, so we're going to start with yarn over slip stitches. Yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, and you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to pull through all 3 of those loops with this yarn, so pull through all of them, and that's a yarn over slip stitch. Yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull through. If you want to do it slowly, then you can pull through them individually like that, but I'm going to, it's one of those stitches that actually once you get your head wrapped around it, you find yourself doing it quite rhythmically, and it can get quite speedy actually. Just be nice and loose with your stitches on this one. And there's lots of garments I've seen about the place using just the yarn over slip stitch, because it does create a nice rib effect, which a bit like a knitted fisherman's rib, and you could make yourself a nice fisherman's sweater then. I don't have one of those designs. I was going to make one, but I saw there was just a few too many out there already, so I've kind of given up on the idea. So at the end of the first row of yarn over slip stitches, you turn your work chain 1, and then we're just going to do our regular slip stitches into the back loops only. So that's pulling through, and I'm going to run out of battery. Shoot. So we're just doing our slip stitches all the way to the end, and this is a 2-row pattern repeat, So it's yarn over slip stitches one way, and that's back loop only, and then regular stitches back loop only, keeping them all nice and loose. I think I've done enough so that you can see those worked up, and people are about to come home any minute, so I'm going to have to stop now anyway. You're spoiled for choice, really. I was going to say that maybe it will help you decide which rib you want to choose, but maybe I've just made things worse and you just don't know which one to choose now. Which one's going to go with that project that you're making next? Is it going to be the easy front loop, the half treble, you know the terms, with the slip stitch, or perhaps the one that looks the most like a knit rib? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, because I'm sure more tutorials are on the way. Thank you very, very much for watching, and hopefully I will speak to you soon. Thank you ever so much. From me and my hideous nails, thank you. See you soon. Cheerio. Bye bye.